Huh? How am I still alive? I guess it must be my, what do you call it? Destiny. That's the one. My destiny. I must be alive because destiny. What's up, guys? It's Daz here, but you don't really care. As today we're talking about Undertale. You know the one. It dominated the gaming industry and the internet for a good few months after its release, and people are still making videos about it even now. Like me. So what does this game have to offer? Well, let's have a look through it and see what it is people are talking about. When first booting up the game, you are greeted with a classic introduction which details the backstory of the game. This is a world where humans and monsters both exist together. Many years ago, a war broke out and the monsters were banished and locked away underground, beneath a mountain. Sometime later, we see a child in a striped shirt trip and fall into a gaping hole, dropping him into the land of monsters. Next thing you know, the gameplay begins. You are a child, in a striped shirt, and you seem to have fallen on a bed of flowers. That's nice. And thus starts your surprisingly short journey to escape from the underground. On your travels, you come to meet some of the monstrous residents of the underground, such as a goat, a carrot, a rope on fire, a bird, a plane, a super man, a couple of skeletons, a blob, a fish, a ghost, a dummy, a robot, a lizard, a flower, a few dogs, and hey, another goat. I guess humans are just super judgmental when it comes to war and banishing. Anyway, eventually you reach the end and then you leave. The end, right? Wrong. Everything depends on the choices you make on your journey. And sure, that's not exactly something new in video games, but this actually affects the game completely. This isn't like The Walking Dead where the next season will always start the same, or like in Life is Strange where all choices merge into just a couple of outcomes. This is full on changing the entire atmosphere of the game. In order to get the best ending, you must reach the barrier at the end of the underground with all monsters alive. The way you do this is by sparing them in battle. Yes, distancing away from the regular conventions of modern games. You don't have to mindlessly kill everyone in your way. Sparing allows the monsters to live on and get on with their lives. After all, they're not simply targets like in many other games. Many monsters even get full-on character development and have their own stories to tell, either in plain sight or hidden behind the scenes. Of course, you don't have to spare them all. In order to get the worst ending, you could always kill everyone you see, and this choice leads to dramatically powerful outcomes. For a start, by the time you reach the barrier, you don't have a large selection of friends who trust and believe in you. Instead, you have a fleeing horde running in fear behind the scenes, whilst a few brave knights sacrifice themselves in an attempt to stop you from murdering those who are still alive. Things get pretty heavy if you've already become invested in them from a previous playthrough. Of course, considering the fact that Undertale is a game, you can always just save and reset the game to try out every single outcome, just to see what happens. It's just like Life is Strange and rewinding time. So say for example you kill Toriel, the first main character, or boss monster as they're called, in the game to see what she says. Then you choose to reset and play again with the choice of sparing her to make sure you get the best ending. All is good except, I know what you did. You murdered her. And then you went back because you regretted it. Meet Flowey, by the way. For some reason, he's able to retain his memories beyond your saving and resetting. So even though your choices can be essentially wiped away in favour for a better one, the game will still change based on your old choices. The game remembers. And this is one of the most outstanding things about Undertale in my opinion. It's very much a game that is aware of itself. The fact that the generic mechanic of save and loading is addressed and discussed within the gameplay is something that I don't think we've seen before. And its integration in the overall story makes this game one that will be remembered for many years to come. So who is Flowey? Well, he's got quite a bit of history to him, technically more than anyone else in the game. Like you, he can save and reset the game, but only now that you've appeared are his powers no longer present. Something about you having more toll power and protect than him, or something like that. So while characters like Toriel are known to be hundreds of years old, it's a long tale, but just bear with me. Flowey has potentially one of the longest lines of existence, simply from the fact that he can recall previous timelines from resetting. So while we've only seen he's been playing Undertale for a maximum of 999 minutes, the fact that he references many of the timelines he's played and eventually gotten bored of experiencing seems to tell that he has lived the longest out of everyone else, because he actually remembers the time loop that everyone is in. But yes, he's resetted the game so many times and explored every single possible outcome that he has become bored and distant from everyone else else in the game. This, of course, makes him a character that can't really feel anything anymore, because everything's just a series of outcomes that have already happened or been predicted. It's just coding and programming, basically. But hey, it's the closest thing to you there is in this game. So what about the other characters in the game? The other main characters in particular are some of the most well-written and emotionally investing I've seen in a long time. And sure, they are quite simplistic in their concept, but the way they are developed and presented, and the way they interact with you and each other adds to create a sense that they're real, which only really makes your immoral actions all the more powerful. Take Undyne, for example, who, by the way, wasn't even a character I was a fan of for a long time. She's a fish who is head of the Royal Guard. Her main focal point is that she never gives up. Everything about her screams stubborn. Are you fighting her? She'll never accept your attempts to spare her. She will kill you while she can still stand. Say that the challenge of being your friend is too much for her? Nothing is too much for Undyne. Or the best example that turned my opinion of her completely around, in the genocide route, the one where you kill everyone, when confronted by her, you slice her in half before the battle begins, but she lingers. She goes on a little monologue of how your murderous rampage jeopardizes those of both humans and monsters, and as long as she has an inkling of hope, she will strike you down. And with that, she refuses death itself in order to fight you. This fight also comes to be the first actually challenging fight in the genocide route. Of course, the fact that she refuses to die is due to extraneous hidden details, but the morals behind her are still entirely hers. She never gives up on anything, especially if it's for the sake of all humans and monsters. More emphasis on the monsters. Not to mention, despite all the seriousness this game can produce, there are still many elements of comedy scattered throughout the game. Take every interaction with Sans and Papyrus, the skeleton bros of Snowdin. Papyrus is eternally trying to be a functioning member of society and maybe one day the Royal Guard, whilst Sans is just there, enjoying the little things in life in the most minimalistic fashion, for some reason. And whether it's the funny signs, the ridiculous antics, or the bone-stealing dogs, the game always finds a way to give off at least a little chuckle. Well, if I play nice. Also, literally everything in this game is a pun in some way. The fishing pole with someone's number on it, that's a pickup line. Bratty and Catty, the shopkeepers in the alleyway next to the MTT Resort Hotel, they're an alley cat and alligator. But enough about jokes, let's move into gameplay. The battle system is an amalgamation of elements we've seen in other game genres combined to create something we've never seen before. In battle mode, you are represented by a floating red heart. You are contained within a white box and must physically dodge enemy attacks by moving around in the space, taking clear influences from bullet hell type games and adding them into RPG battle systems. When attacking, you are given 4 actions to move forward with. Fight, which lets you attack by playing a brief rhythm game. Act, which allows you to interact with the enemy in some way, which changes from enemy to enemy. Item, which lets you use items. And spare, the big new mechanic which allows you to not fight for a turn. In order to successfully spare someone, you need to use a combination of act and spare moves until your enemy no longer wants to fight you. But along with this simple setup, the game adds additional elements as you progress in ingenious yet simplistic ways. For example, when fighting Papyrus, he turns your heart blue, which adds gravity. Now you must jump over bones instead of just floating. Or Undyne will give you a spear to defend yourself, further adding the element of rhythm type games. It's also interesting how every single enemy has a different move when fighting you. Together, all these elements join to create a new type of fighting system which seems to work pretty damn well if you ask me. Of course, not every fight sticks to the status quo of this formula. In some cases, the enemy continues to attack you in the menu screen or the box containing you is no longer present. Or simply not attacking you stops you from having your turn so you can't kill them. The game likes to break the regular conventions of games, and acts as a commentary on modern gaming, and many of its aspects. Not just the killing of enemies thoughtlessly, but selling items at a shop is useless if they're not a pawn shop, or sleeping in an inn for only a couple of minutes. It's minute jokes like this that shows how Undertale doesn't just try to be another generic game. It tries to be something outstanding from the rest. Even the common theme of unused content has a parody within the game, in the form of W.D. Gaster, who's an unused character in the game with hidden references to him still hidden in-game. Speaking of things beyond the game, the soundtrack to this game is incredible. With 100 tracks in total, the variety of atmosphere within Undertale is impressive, and many are fan favourites. There's just too many good ones. Whether it be the goofy theme of Papyrus and his childish yet adorable antics, the upbeat theme of Muppet the Spider's battle theme, the creepy theme of the True Lab, or the uplifting build-up of the finale theme, there's memorable tracks scattered throughout the game that everyone can enjoy. Plus, being the genius that Toby Fox is, by the way there was only one developer in his entire project, just him, some talented artists and a bunch of Kickstarter backers, most of the soundtrack contains Easter eggs within themselves. For example, the track His Theme appears throughout many other tracks in the game, including multiple boss themes. The track Nobody Came, which plays when most of the enemies in an area are dead, is a super slowed down version of Flowey's theme. Some area themes are slowed down versions of later boss fights, and Sans' theme is actually the dog song Slowed Down too. The game is full to the brim with content and hidden secrets, and it all comes together beautifully to make this masterpiece of a game. Everything is so well polished and put together that I could probably say that this is a perfect game. I mean, literally, here are the only flaws I can find from the game. I personally don't like the aesthetic look of the ruins. When I first saw the game, that first room with Toriel and the stairs made me think that I wasn't going to like the art style of the game at all. Once I persevered beyond that though, I was happy. The game is awfully linear in that, for the most part, you just have to follow the corridor and go right. Of course, this isn't always the case, but the underground is not exactly an open field. The use of acting doesn't really feel like you're being inventive in battles, or at least that's what others have said, as their options are already there for you, so you just have to pick the best one and do what it says. And while the last two are just flaws I've heard other people say, I sort of agree with them. The one biggest issue I have with the game though is the final boss. From the pacifist route, after battling the vast majority of monsters in the underground, we fight against this one last one. And what would have been really nice is if we saw a combination of every other boss monster's attack. If there was an integration of all the coloured hearts and their additional mechanics, the battle would be perfect. That being said, I don't think it's worth taking a point away from the total score, as it's more of an alternative choice I would have taken rather than a problem with the game. Dodging a bajillion stars and rainbow cannons are still just good enough for me. And the last thing that people have a problem with when it comes to Undertale is the fan base. And this isn't a flaw of the game. Again, I won't be taking points off for it, but many people think the fan base is cancer, because they're mostly crazy passionate. They've taken the internet by storm with their remixes, their covers, their comics, their dubs, and everything they created as a tribute to the game. The amount of fan content there is makes it tempting for me to just create a guide to the fan-based video series for Undertale, but maybe that'll come another day. Either way, it can be a little overwhelming. I myself see Undertale referencing comments throughout my videos in places where it's barely relevant, but I don't mind. I like the game too. And while people do hate the game for it, it's not something worth bashing the actual game for. So with all that in mind, what is my end score for this? Child falling, flower fearing, pellet dodging, mother loving, pun telling, puzzle solving, snowball pushing, cheese grabbing, in, sleeping, dog chasing, skeleton dating, stargazing, snail racing, duck flying, demi finding, spear dodging, water giving, quiz playing, hot dog eating, overheating, bomb defusing, show performing, law learning, king fighting, fear for your lifing, resetting, carrot chopping, mum murdering, area wiping, town deserting, brother beating, kid killing, fish filleting, fear spreading, plane exploding, friend betraying, barrier reaching, soul releasing, monster freeing adventure. 100 out of 100. Yay! Ba-ding! No, really. This game is pretty flawless to me. The issues I have are so minute that I don't think they're worth penalising the game for. In fact, here are the 10 categories I had for the game and their scores. The visuals and stylistic choice work really well and are incredibly smooth. The music is just great. There are so many masterpieces here, I can't not give it a 10. The story is amazing. The story that it's a commentary of modern gaming as well as just how everything comes together is amazing. Replayability is definitely there through the actually impacting outcomes from the different choices you make. Characters are undoubtedly a 10 out of 10. If they were badly written, there wouldn't be so many comics about them. The bosses are unique, their battle mechanics innovative, and again, my only qualm is the final boss. Innovation, again, yes. As an indie game, this obviously stands out amazingly from the crowd. The new battle mechanics, the commentary, the way the loading continues to be part of the game, yeah, it's definitely new. Polish, the game is super polished. The closest thing to a glitch there is walking against the wall glitch to maximize steps, but even then it can be patched out if needed. Controls, yeah, at this point I started to run out of categories to judge, but yeah, the controls are pretty simplistic, sure, but they work smoothly, everything works well, the game is easy to control and all is good there, no real flaws. And value. For the minimalistic price of indie games on Steam, This game is seething with value. There is so much content and goodness for like, what, £10? $10? If that. You can't say that's not good value for money. So, yeah, I highly recommend this game. Just try not to fall into the deep dark bit of the fan base because, oh boy, is it hard to get out of. And on that note, I'm going to end it off here. Now that I'm out of this mountain, I think I'm going to enjoy the fresh air and see what nature has to offer me. My name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit. Wow, that was a weird voice. Whoops.